All right, today we are diving deep into what is, let's be honest, probably the most iconic image of high-tech farming out there, nutrient film technique, or as you probably know it, NFT hydroponics.
You know the picture, right? These long, perfect rows of clean white pipes with the most vibrant green lettuce heads just popping right out of them. Well, that's not just some sci-fi concept art. That is a very real, very specific, and incredibly powerful method called the nutrient film technique. And we're going to break down exactly how it works, piece by piece.
But before we get into all the cool engineering, let's just be real about the stakes here. NFT is ridiculously efficient. We're talking up to 90% less water than growing in soil. But, and this is a big but, it is super unforgiving. One little mistake, like a power outage that kills your pump, and your entire crop could be completely dead in just a couple of hours. It is the definition of high risk, high reward.
So to really get a handle on this system, we have to start with the one concept that gives it its name. Let's peel back the layers on the science that makes this thing so incredibly fast.
Okay, so here's the textbook definition. NFT is all about a very shallow, continuous stream of nutrient-rich water that's constantly flowing past the bare roots of your plants. The two words you absolutely have to remember here are shallow and continuous. This is not a flood and drain system. It's a constant, gentle, non-stop flow.
And when we say film, we literally mean a film. The layer of water flowing through the channel is unbelievably thin. We're talking about the thickness of a credit card. And this is so important because it means just the very tips of the roots are dipping into the water, while the whole upper part of the root mass is just hanging out in the air, getting all the oxygen it could ever want.
And this just perfectly illustrates that dynamic. It's really just a simple three-step dance. First, you've got the flow, which is pumped up from your reservoir. This creates that super thin film of nutrient solution. And the result of all that? The roots get unlimited access to both food and oxygen at the exact same time, which, as you can imagine, leads to absolutely explosive growth.
Okay, so that's the theory. It sounds pretty elegant, right? But how do you actually build one of these things? Well, it really just boils down to 4 essential parts.
Here they are, your shopping list. You need the channels, a reservoir to hold your nutrient solution, a submersible pump, and this thing runs 24/7, no timers needed here, and an air stone for the reservoir to keep that water full of oxygen. Oh, and a little pro tip for you, go for flat bottom channels, not round PVC pipes. They're way better because they let that thin film spread out perfectly and evenly.
Now, of all the parts and all the settings, there is one golden rule. One thing you absolutely, positively cannot mess up. I'm not exaggerating when I say this is the #1 mistake that leads to total system failure for beginners.
So what do you think it is? What's the one design flaw that can just completely wipe out your entire operation before you even really get started?
The answer is the slope. And the magic ratio is 1:40. What that means is for every 40 inches of pipe you have, you need it to drop just 1 inch in height. Any more or any less, and you're in trouble. This exact angle is what creates that perfect, gentle flow that makes the whole system sing.
And getting this wrong has immediate, disastrous consequences. If your channels are too flat, the water pools up, it gets stagnant, and hello, root rot. But if you go too steep, the water just rushes right past the roots so fast they can't grab any nutrients, and they basically starve to death. That 1:40 ratio, it is the absolute perfect sweet spot. Okay, so you've got your flow engineered to perfection. Now, what are you going to grow in it? See, NFT is a specialist tool, so you really have to play to its strengths.
The absolute champs in an NFT system are your short-term, lightweight, leafy greens. You know, think lettuce, basil, mint, bok choy, that kind of stuff. And the reason is super simple. You're going to harvest them in about 30 to 45 days, long before their root systems get big enough to cause any trouble.
On the other hand, you really want to steer clear of those heavy-feeding fruiting plants like tomatoes or cucumbers. It's not that they can't grow. Oh, they'll grow all right. The problem is their massive root systems will eventually fill up the entire channel, creating a literal dam that blocks the water flow and starves everything downstream.
All right, you've got the right slope, you've picked the right plants, you are almost there. But there are still a few common dangers, a few booby traps you need to know about to protect your system.
You know, this table really sums up the double-edged sword that is NFT. You get this incredible water efficiency, but a pump failure is catastrophic. You get faster harvests, but that same thin film of water can heat up dangerously fast. The system is easy to clean, but the tiny tubes that feed each channel can get clogged up in a heartbeat.
And out of all of those dangers, your public enemy number one is heat. Because the water is spread out in such a thin layer. It absorbs heat like a sponge. And warm water is just terrible news. It's the perfect breeding ground for root rot. And it holds way less of the precious oxygen your plants need to breathe.
So how do you fight back against the heat? Well, there are 3 simple moves. First, always use white pipes. They reflect sunlight. Second, if you're getting serious, a reservoir chiller is pretty much non-negotiable. And third, you can add insulation or even just some reflective foil around the pipes to keep that sun off.
So, after all that, what's the final word? Well, it really all comes back to that core idea we started with. This is a high-risk system, but it's for a very, very high reward.
You know, I absolutely love this analogy. It calls NFT the Formula One car of hydroponics. And that just nails it, doesn't it? It is incredibly fast, it's lightweight, it's pure high performance. But just like an F1 car, it is not for a beginner. It requires a skilled, attentive driver to keep it from spinning out.
So, if you can master that perfect flow, if you can manage the temperature, and you pick the right crops, the results are just breathtaking. The only question left is, are you ready to get behind the wheel?